All right, welcome to Journey Road Ministries Song and Sermon. This is the third Sunday of Advent, so mark your calendars, particularly your Advent calendar. Anyway, this is a song about Christmas, and I know I've played it before, but I like it, so I'm going to play it again. And if you don't like it, well, you can just skip over this part, as always. It's about Christmas in prison. It was Christmas in prison and the food was real good. We had turkey and pistols carved out of wood. And I dream of her always, even when I don't dream. Her name's on my tongue, her blood's my stream. Wait a while, eternity. Old Mother Nature's got nothing. Of a chess game with someone I admire, or a picnic in the rain after a prairie fire. Her heart is as big as this whole goddamn jail. She's sweeter than saccharin at a drugstore sale. Wait a while, eternity. Old Mother Nature's got nothing on me. Sweetheart, we're flowing by God. The searchlight in the big yard swings around with a gun and catches the snowflakes like dust in the sun. Well, it's Christmas in prison, there'll be music tonight. I probably get homesick, I love you good night. Wait a while, eternity. Old Mother Nature's got nothing on me. Oh, come to me, run to me, come to me now. We're rolling, my sweetheart, we're flowing by God. All right, that's Christmas in prison. Let me put this guitar up and I'll catch you on the flip side. Okay, welcome back to the serious part of today, Song and Sermon. This is the sermon part, or the homily part. I grew up with sermons, not homilies, so that's what you get out of my mouth. This gospel reading today comes from Matthew chapter 11, verses 2 through 11. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out and see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Look, those who wear soft robes are in royal palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'See, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly, I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist, yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." Thus endeth the message. I just love that. I just love that message. Jesus throws everything upside down. And anytime you read, "Truly, I tell you," you know something powerful's coming. So that's why I chose Christmas in Prison, because this is kind of, I mean, this would be John's song, right? It's Christmas in Prison. And I've often thought that many of our love songs, our romantic songs, are appropriate for our love of Yeshua of Nazareth, and so you get Christmas in Prison by John Prine, and this is a very interesting passage to me, because he says, you know, John is the greatest of all people born on the planet, and even the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. So it's an upside down world once again. Now, my lovely cousin who came here for Thanksgiving, and it was the primary reason for my tardiness in getting out my last sermon. So it was about 3 weeks ago. She sent me an article. She said, "Oh, I think you might like this. You might find a sermon in this." And the article is on Plow, a magazine, and it's called, let me get to the title of it, "The Day No One Would Say Nazis Were Bad. Some Say Relativism is on its way out on college campuses, giving way to partisan passions. This ethics professor finds it alive and well." And he talks about how, ethics professor talks about how, well, you know, he throws out these conundrums for the students to solve, and in this case, he couldn't get them to admit that Nazis were bad people, and therefore, in his world, relativism, that is, your opinion is as good as my opinion, is as good as their opinion, is alive and well on college campuses, because all they really care about is getting a job. And I find this the most foul interpretation of what's going on college campuses. My personal experience is that the Gen Z, those folks on college campuses, and I do tutor some of them from time to time, yes, they want a job. Yes, they're under a lot of pressure. Yes, they've spent the last 2.5 or 3 years under a pandemic that has killed parents and friends and aunts and uncles and grandparents and neighbors. You can't discount that. But they believe, for the most part, that the people should be treated equally, that racism is a bad thing, that discriminating against LGBTQ folks is a bad thing. They are generally accepting of gender identity or gender fluidity, and it's only the ones who are extremists who believe that that's a bad thing, that all this, that black folks are bad, or that gay folks are bad, or that trans folks are bad, or that drag queen shows are bad. And they get out their guns and they go shoot up power stations. And I would take up this article about, they wouldn't say that Nazism is bad, and he blames it on social media, that you know that it's all equal, it's all relative, everybody's got opinions. But I have been on Twitter since 2017, not real active except for the last year or so, and I'll tell you, it's very judgmental. If I get on there and I talk about how there's no racism in the States, I can pretty much count on the fact that there's going to be a whole slew of folks that tell me what an idiot I am, and are happy to point out my idiocy to me with multiple pieces of evidence. Now, since it's been purchased by Elon Musk, the rate of hate speech and Nazi speech has increased dramatically. It's much more of a cesspool than it was before. It was more of a civil exchange of ideas. But everybody had a point. I mean, no one said, "Oh well, Nazis are as good as anybody else." No one said that. They either say, "Oh, Nazis the way forward," or Nazis are horrible individuals, bad people. And so in the context here of being a Christian and acting in a Christian way and using Christ as our model for what we should be doing. We look at contemporary Christianists. I hate to call them Christians because I don't think they are at all, and they're full of hate. They're full of hate. They're full of hate. You know, this was the Marriage Equality Act or something was passed in Congress this week, and we had this woman stand up and weep about how it was so anti-God and anti-biblical, and it was, you know, as if two women or two men who love each other and get married are going to cause any kind of damage to anything at all. Jesus, well, I mean, you can do the historical role of homosexuality. Greeks preferred homosexual relationships over heterosexual relationships. Very likely Paul was gay. It wasn't even talked about because it wasn't important. Find me in the New Testament anywhere where Jesus condemns being gay or being a lesbian or anything like that. He doesn't. He condemns plenty of things. Jesus was not a relativist. Okay, he condemns the wealthy, the people in soft robes. You want to see people in soft robes? Go to the palace, you know. Why did you come out here? What do you think you're going to see out here? From the passage. I would take strong objection to this article because I think that on quite the opposite is happening, that relativism and the acceptance of ideas that are foreign or not ours is declining, that we are in a far more polarized period, and for me the actual more accurate description comes out of an old book, which if you haven't read, you ought to, called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. And he was a longshoreman and brilliant man. And there's plenty to disagree, plenty of opportunity to disagree with Hoffer, and I'm sure that if he were alive today, he would welcome that disagreement and that discussion. He wrote a book called True Believer, Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movements. and a couple of quotes out of that book, I've read it several times, really put the spotlight on what we're experiencing now. For example, the enemy, the indispensable devil of every mass movement, is omnipresent. He plots both outside and inside the ranks of the faithful. It is his voice that speaks through the mouth of the dissenter, and the deviationists are his stooges. If anything goes wrong within the movement, it is his doing. It is the sacred duty of the true believer to be suspicious. He must be constantly on the lookout for saboteurs, spies, and traitors. Well, I mean, how does that not describe QAnon movement? How does that not describe right-wing extremism? It's spot on. It's accurate. And this is a book that was written in the 60s, you know? I mean, that was a long time ago. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for the lost faith in ourselves. Now, you don't hear Jesus talking about have faith in a cause. What does Jesus talk about? He talks about love. He talks about reaching the poor. He talks about healing the sick. He talks about reaching out to the least people in the world and helping them, not punching them down. He doesn't say, hey, go find a poor person and punch them. Go find a poor person and blame them for being poor. No, none of that happens. Jesus points out that you have to, what do? Love God, love your neighbor. That's the end of the story. And I keep saying it over and over again, and he said it over and over again, and I don't know why it's so hard to understand. And well, actually, I do know why it's hard to understand. Things which are not are indeed mightier than things that are. In all ages, men have fought most desperately for beautiful cities yet to be built, and gardens yet to be planted. That's us. And the reason these kids are reluctant to speak badly against the Nazis is because there's probably a Nazi or two in that classroom. And they don't want to offend them. They're afraid to offend them. It's not because they believe that Nazism is okay. No one believes that except a Nazi. It's not okay to round up 6 million Jews and send them to the gas chamber. It's not okay to conquer and commit genocide against Ukrainians. It's not okay to lie and promote propaganda. It's important to call it out and as for what it was. And you see Jesus doing this over and over and over again. He's the one who says the emperor has no clothes. He's the one who says, give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and give unto God the things that are God's. He calls out the hypocrisy of the religious leadership, of the political leadership, and the result was that they murdered him. They killed him. They executed him. He was not part of the institution. And so my message today is there's no relativism making its way into the university campuses. Only professors who are unwilling to engage their students at such a level that they feel safe and capable of calling out evil. Now, do we know what evil is? Well, it's like art, you know. I know it when I see it. I think evil is a general disregard for the health and safety and dignity of others. That's evil. A prison guard, you know, in that song, the searchlight in the big yard swings round with the gun and catches the snowflakes like dust in the sun. Well, you know, imprisoning people is evil. The prisoners aren't. It's the people who imprison them. And yes, I know there are plenty of people who've done plenty of very bad things who should be sequestered away from the rest of society. But if you think that all those prisons are full of those kinds of people, you're sadly mistaken. Most of them are in for drug charges or alcohol charges or petty or thievery charges. Or, you know, murdering, getting into a heated argument and shooting somebody. Most of them are not serial killers or first-degree murderers or baby killers. And yet our prisons are overflowing. And the reason is because we as a society are committing evil on these people. Go visit someone in prison for Christmas. Just do it. Just go see someone. The cousin that sent me that article does. She's in and out of prisons all the time, and she's doing, you know, the thing of it is, she's a social worker, but she's doing God's work, because her job is to keep people who are on death row from being executed. All right, that is a good and holy thing to do. She doesn't judge whether they did or not. She said, in fact, she told me quite recently that, you know, these people really probably shouldn't be out in society, that they really have done bad, horrible, terrible. I don't let her tell me the stories anymore because they're the stuff of nightmares. Anybody could act like that and do that kind of thing, and yet she goes to these people, the worst of the worst. And she tells their story to a jury to keep them from being put to death. Now, you know, you can't get much better than that. So, happy third Sunday of Advent. Remember that people are more important than ideas. I suspect that this extremism we're experiencing now, in part, is because of the pandemic. In part, it is reflective of the decline of Protestant Christianity. I'm not sure Protestant Christianity has anything new to tell us or anything constructive to tell us anymore. I think it's lost its way a long time ago and has fallen into the path of extremism and judgmentalism, and they, you know, you're gonna have a biblical marriage. That means I could like marry, you know, have a wife and like 5 concubines, right? Or have multiple wives. None of it makes any sense to us. And I think we've lost sight of the fact that the whole point of Yeshua, of Nazareth coming to bring this good news to the poor, to all of us, is that we're supposed to love each other. So this Christmas, work on that. All right. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in 3 weeks. Blessings.